Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to this thematic session on India's pet food industry, scaling for domestic and global growth. India's pet food sector is undergoing a paradigm shift. With rising pet ownership, high disposable incomes, growing awareness of animal nutrition, the industry is fast becoming a vital part of India's pet care economy. What was once a niche is now a rapid maturing sector, marketed by increasing demand for premium, functional and customized products. Today, we will explore how innovation, sustainability and global readiness are shaping the next phase of this exciting industry. This session could not be more timely. India's pet food industry is being reshaped by powerful shifts in consumer behavior, technology and global trade. From sustainable manufacturing that uses agro and animal byproducts to the rise of functional nutrition and novel formats, the sector is embracing both efficiency and innovation. At the same time, the domestic market is expanding quickly, while India is also emerging as a potential export hub. With a strong base in dairy, poultry and fisheries, and with 3 million bovines, the country has the raw material strength to support large-scale pet manufacturing. The real opportunity lies in combining this scale with modern infrastructure and regulatory clarity, and while branding it to make India not just a domestic leader but also a globally competitive hub for pet nutrition. And for this, today we have our moderator with us and she'll be guiding us through our session. So please welcome Ms. Pallavi Anand. She is the business head of Nestlé Purina Petcare and for the South Asia region. And now to introduce our panelists, we have Mr. Abhishek Agarwal, who is the founder and CEO of Anomalous Pet Food. While we also have with us Mr. Satinder Singh, who is the managing director. So, yeah, Mr. Abhishek, could you please join us? So he is the founder and CEO of Anomalous Pet Products. Next we have with us Mr. Satinder Singh, who is the managing director of Royal Canin. With us we have Mr. Salil Murthy, who is the managing director of Mass Petcare. We also have with us Ms. Rinka Banerjee, who is the founder and CEO of Think Folks Consulting. And at last, we also have with us Mr. Ram Soni, who is the partner at Food and Agriculture at Praxis Global Alliance. We are honored to have such an accomplished panel with us today. And with that, now I invite our moderator, Ms. Pallavi Anand, to take the session forward.
Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome to the panel discussion on scaling domestic and global growth for the pet food industry. And we have esteemed panelists amongst us, so it's an honor to have you all here. What we're going to do today is try and cover 4 parts in the whole panel discussion. We'll start with a little bit of the opportunity, and I think that's why we are all here, right? This is a segment, and the invite team spoke about it, which is the one that is showing a lot of growth opportunity. We'll talk about the opportunity and from various aspects, because our panelists consist of people from the industry, people from consulting, startups and so on. So we'll take their view on what the opportunity looks like. Move on to some challenges. I think with all opportunities come challenges. But the idea is that what we'll try and do here is try and see that if we can find solutions to those challenges. Try and conclude towards the end with a quick rapid fire. I hope we have time for that. That should be fun. And the last one we'll open up for Q&A for all of you. So just before we begin, I think we spoke about the opportunity, and of course it comes because there is a shift happening in the consumer behavior. We see more pet ownerships. I don't know how many of you have pets, but definitely it will be more than what it was 10 years ago. And we are seeing that shift happening in terms of the way we interact with our pets. They're almost like family to us. And therefore this change we are seeing, from a category perspective, but there's also then a challenge of the pet food penetration being very, very low, right, compared to other food categories that we speak about. And that's where the opportunity and challenge both comes, and that's what we'll try and delve into today. Okay, so without further ado, I will start in no particular order, but I'll start with you. Looking at India's pet food sector, and of course you've seen many sectors before I think you joined pet food. It's still at a relatively early stage, right? And if you compare it to the other developed markets, how do you see India's growth trajectory in the next couple of years in the context of other emerging markets? And what lessons, more importantly, do you think we can draw, and maybe some which are not so relevant for us as well?
Absolutely. Thank you, Pallavi, for putting me on the spot and asking me the first question for today. I also want to, just before I start, thank the Ministry of Food Processing Industries for spotlighting this sector as part of World Food India. For me, this is recognition, like the lady who introduced this panel said. Pet food is no longer a niche sector. It is one of the fastest growing Indian consumer sectors in India, the FMCG sectors in India, and deserves to be in the spotlight. If you look at the data will tell us that in India, this category is at an inflection point. And so today, the category is about, call it $600 million, give take. And every single forecast that I have seen indicates that it's likely to grow between 15 to 18% CAGR over the next few years. Now, there are not a lot of other categories in India that have this upside potential. And the reason for that is actually relatively simple. We have something like about 35 million pets, dogs and cats in India today. That number is likely to double over the next 5 to 7 years. But even within the existing set of pets in India, the household penetration of manufactured pet food is less than 10%. And then if I compare that with developed countries, to your question, Pallavi, you've got household penetrations of anywhere between 70 to 80%. And so there's significant, as you begin to see the macroeconomics grow, assuming the economy continues to grow at 7-8%, we get to the Prime Minister's vision of being a 5 trillion economy over the next, call it 10 to 15 years, we're beginning to see greater disposable incomes, more and more people getting more and more pets, and therefore the category is likely to grow. That said, though, this is not, and you had a fantastic point, the opportunities in front of us, the challenges exist, and I think there are some structural things that all of us in the industry need to do in order to realize this potential. I think the first one is really all about Make in India. Mars Pet Nutrition has been manufacturing in India for the last 20 years. We've got a facility in Hyderabad, and what we've been able to do, therefore, is create thousands of jobs. We've been able to build the ecosystem, and as more and more players enter this and begin to kind of manufacture in India, we're beginning to see a network effect that starts to kick in. That's the first piece. I think the second piece is really about building the category in a safe and a responsible and a transparent manner. And that's really critical for us to have the right regulatory framework to ensure that everybody is actually trying to simplify it as much as possible in terms of how the label looks, adhering to global standards. And what that means is then a rising tide is going to lift all boats. I think the third one for us is really democratizing access to that. And by that I mean making it simple and accessible to more and more consumers, whether it's in terms of what you put on your pack, whether it's in terms of some of the claims that you're making, or whether it's in terms of your distribution and making sure it's accessible to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And so if some of these basic ground rules and framework is in place, this category is going to be the gift that keeps on giving from a food processing standpoint. We're just going to see a ton of growth.
I couldn't agree more. And obviously and like you said, I think there are multiple consulting reports that talk about which are the categories that are growing in the future, and pet food is almost always up there, in terms of future growth. So, Ms. Banerjee, if I can come to you now, and because Salil also spoke a lot about the global context on the category and so on. Based on the consulting work that you do, and we were speaking about a lot of guiding, helping, and so on. Do you believe that the industry's focus on premium and D2C brands is an unsustainable divide, and what is maybe the one strategic intervention that either from the government or industry bodies is needed to make this growth more holistic, maybe more centric towards tier 2, tier 3 cities as well?
Sure. Thank you so much, Pallavi, for having me here, and I think it's fantastic to be part of a panel discussion on pet food. Because this is something we in the consulting side of things have really seen this evolve over the last, I would say, 18 to 24 months, especially post-COVID. And I think one of the first things I would say is, when you ask me about is this putting in a divide, I would say absolutely not. I think it is about the opportunity. Right? This is India's time. We're here, and I think the opportunity that we have across the spectrum, whether it's premium, whether it's mass, and we'll talk about that. I think the first thing that we've seen is the fact that there is a massive humanization of pets to begin with, right? Especially post-COVID, and a lot of this behavior we are seeing through a lot of millennial families, young consumers. So one
of course needs to look at their sensibilities, and those sensibilities would be probably more towards the premium, cleaner label, customized nutrition and so on. But there is a massive job to do in terms of conversion. I don't know whether it's from really fresh home cooked to table scraps, to be honest with you, to packaged food which is densely nutrition, and it's a lot of calorie conversion. And I think where we are seeing that go, I think is a fantastic growth story for us, which is a reflection of our own economy and GDP and all of that, right? So I think that's, so I would say, to answer your first part of the question, I don't see it as a divide, I see it as an opportunity. But what is that intervention that needs to be done? And like Salil said, if you ask me, the first things first, I would say is really having a very strong regulatory framework, which is around nutrition standards, which is around food safety. And it's not like in India, we work with a lot of startups as well as large companies. We work on both sides of the spectrum. It's not like companies don't want to do it. It is just that they are not aware how to do it, right? And that's the challenge. So I think, for me, I would say that would be one very important thing to really think through, and we'll talk about it as we go along in the session. But having the right kind of nutritional standards, which, like you say, is democratizing. And it's not about saying I'm creating a divide, so that means a startup can never achieve that. It's not about that. It's putting the right standards, which are globally compliant. From a nutrition point of view, claims, what can you claim, say what it really does, things like that. So I think that's important. And I would say claims moving on to even, not just FSSAI, but even an ASCI. So going all the way through, I would say that's the opportunity for us.
I think it will be similar for many categories which were built, say, 20 years back, 25 years back. The same fundamental work would have happened.
Absolutely.
Right? It's the same work. Thanks, Rika. I'll move on from domestic to global, because that's what we are here to discuss as well. So maybe Ram, for you, from an investor's lens, what's the weakest link in the pet food export ambition? Is it manufacturing infrastructure? Is it regulatory readiness? We spoke about it from a domestic perspective, but more from an exports perspective. Or maybe a lack of strong Make in India branding that we carry from an imagery perspective for the export markets.
I think the fellow panelists already talked about the opportunity that we have in the domestic market, and there is no doubt about that. The market is growing. Now, we as a consulting firm work with a lot of investors group and also people and strategic investors who are interested to put money in the pet food businesses or food businesses in general. So one of the themes that comes out very clearly, I think that the three aspects that you had mentioned, the manufacturing, regulatory environment and the branding. I think from investors' perspective, all three are important. But if I were to, pick one of the weakest link or the area where there is an improvement is needed, I think all my panelists would also agree, is the regulatory framework. So infrastructure is something that can be built. Branding is, in my views, it comes when you have access to international market. But without access, what you will do with the branding? So there are people, there are companies, private equity or strategic investor. They are willing to put money where they see companies have access to domestic as well as international market, because the market is growing. So the export market is a big market in terms of opportunities. It's close to $30 billion market. And India as a country is doing pretty well. In the last couple of years, exports are also growing, but can we do more? I think current contribution is less than 1% if we talk about the global market. So to me, compliance and regulatory compliance is the current choke point, if I were to mention that. And if India is able to scale that compliance aspect, I think the money will follow. Infrastructure can be built, and branding is something that people invest once we see there is access to international market. Yeah.
So both domestic and export, I think the answer from our panelists is the same. Now I'll move on, Abhishek, to you, and this is an interesting one because you're a startup founder, and just my personal story on pet food. I've worked across multiple food categories, and you spoke about it that you chanced to pot it. It was by chance or whatever, but I think it's one of those. It has a special place because it's one of those categories that not only has the potential for growth, but also has a very. It makes you feel responsible for somebody like a pet or person in your family who cannot speak. So what has been your journey in this space? What led you to start? And then more importantly, as a startup founder, what is the challenges that you face in educating a new market? Or is it more managing the complex supply chain? And how do you scale up from a small to a medium to a large scale? So what have been your learnings in that space?
Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you for the question, Pallavi. I also would like to thank the Ministry for conducting this session on pet food. Finally, the category, the industry has the kind of spotlight that I think we've always needed and I think well deserved for so. I think when you talk about the challenges, of course, when we started 10 years ago with our first D2C brand, the quantum of challenges as we see them today were very different 10 years ago. We were also operating in a very niche segment, wherein we were doing a premium offering with, say, food grade standards for a feed-based product or a feed product. So of course, education was definitely a gap, but the real nightmares were with on the supply side of things. But I think as we grew, things got easier, maybe we got used to them. Also, as we progressed and I spoke with other entrepreneurs who were sharing our journey in the sense of going through the same cycle as all startups do in their lifetime, we realized that this was not just an us problem, it was a problem that was with just about everybody, right? That's just how the nature of business works. We realized that this was more like an opportunity and a problem that could not be solved by one company or one brand alone, which is probably where we decided to pivot our role from that of, say, a player within the D2C space to one of an enabler of the D2C space. We opened up our manufacturing capabilities to other brands, anybody who wanted to start a D2C brand, using a manufacturing backbone that we were already offering for them, which helped us consolidate that demand and thereby, addressing some of those challenges that we just discussed on the supply side. It also helped us basically remove some of these redundant overheads in terms of R&Ds, in terms of, testing, in terms of compliance and so on and so forth. Today we manufacture for about 20 odd brands in India, and of course we are now also eyeing at export and potentially looking at the international market as well. Together now all of these brands work towards building, bridging that education gap. So I think that has been a win-win situation for us, wherein we were able to take care of both the supply side of issues as well as the education bit of it. And again, education is also an ongoing journey. As new products enter the market, new companies enter the market, there will be different narratives, different things to talk about. So that I think is an ongoing journey for years to come.
Yeah, perfect. No, found the problem, found a solution, and trying to democratize it or make it easier for other people. Great. Satyendra, now to you. I think Royal Canin's authority in building rigorous science is very well known. Are you planning to localize R&D for prevalent Indian breed conditions and the local ingredient palette from an India perspective without obviously compromising on global specific standards? Is a make in India or an Indian specific formulation something that is really needed in the market?
Thanks Pallavi for asking this question. I think it gives I'll tell you that where we come from. Our belief is that every cat and dog is unique, and hence every cat and dog requires a unique nutrition. And we operate in 120 countries, and we have created our network in a way that we could address the needs, local needs of these 122 countries with our global network. We have 15 factories, 2 packaging centers, 3 R&D centers and laboratories, and about 7 other facilities to support the R&D for the products which we cater to these 122 countries. Now, what we do, whenever we launch our products in any country, whenever we move to any country, we first understand the needs, the local needs of these countries. So globally, we have a portfolio which has about 450 plus recipes, about 1250 SKUs, and in India so far, basis the needs of the local pets, we have launched about 135 recipes and about 280 SKUs so far. So we work very closely with pet professionals to understand that what are the needs, and we bring those products here. And definitely the R&Ds work centrally, but it caters to the need of the local market. And few years back we realized that the gap is not in the product offering, but in India, the gap was in the pack sizes, what we bring to the consumer. So hence we have invested in packaging center in India, because most of the Indians prefer to buy in smaller packs, wherein most of our imported packs were large packs. So we have invested about 100 crores in Bhiwandi, where we have put a packing center to convert these large bags to small bags and cater to the needs of Indian consumers. And that's the reason that last so many years we've been we are the most recommended brand by veterinarians, because that's the kind of testament that they feel that we are addressing the local needs of the pet owners. So I think that's our structure, that's our framework which helps us to ensure that.
So thanks so much, Satinder. We'll now move on to some challenges and thoughts that all of you have on those. Salil, we'll start again with you. So while the category is growing, and of course we spoke about it's a gift that keeps giving, if I may quote you back, but the industry still faces challenges, right? There is low adoption, awareness gaps, affordability concerns, and so on. So from an industry perspective, what would be the critical ask from, say, the government that can help bridge these challenges and really support responsible growth? I'm saying responsible just so that the right aspects of the growth are also considered by you.
No, I think it's a really good word, responsible. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly how I think if all of us are to build the category, it needs to be in a responsible way. It cannot be in a zero-sum way, purely because the opportunity is just so large and standing out in front of us. So I think there are probably a few factors, I would say, from an ask standpoint that we need. One is, and a couple of my fellow panelists have talked about this as well, but it bears repeating, getting the right regulatory framework in place that just ensures that every player in the category works to build the category in a responsible manner. Right? And so I think that becomes super critical. I think linked to that is just driving the awareness piece of it to ensure that everybody is very clear on what is required as you continue to grow. I think that's the first piece. I think the second piece that's really required is policy that is actually that actually helps grow. One of the opportunities that some of us have talked about, and yesterday we had raised this as part of the CEO discussion with the Honorable Minister as well, was in terms of GST. We know that the category has a lot of room to grow, and today pet food in particular is taxed at 18% GST. If I look at pet shampoo, if I look at pet toys, if I look at veterinary medicines, they're all under the ambit at 5%. And pet food, therefore, which I can argue is probably the biggest contributor to the health of pets, still being taxed at 18%, feels like a little bit of an anomaly. And harmonizing the GST, I think, is going to have an incredible upside effect in terms of driving the democratization that we talked about, improving access and affordability, and really jump-starting this category. So that would probably be the second ask. I think the third piece, and this is a structural piece that we need to kind of begin to build, is really building the awareness and the functional, call it the awareness of what pet food is all about. And today, if you look at it, a lot of pet parents in India feed their pets with table scraps or home-cooked food. This offers less than 10%. The typical home-prepared food provides less than 10% of the nutrition that is required by the pet to have a long and healthy life. And if you think about how multiple categories were built, and I go back to how the Sunday Hoya Monday, Rose Cow Monday kind of a campaign that was done like a million years ago, and I know I'm dating myself.
Salt and so many of these categories.
So many of these categories. I know I'm dating myself. Most people in the room have never, are not old enough to remember that. But this fundamentally built functional awareness and literacy, and literally I think for the pet food category, we need something as basic as building functional literacy about what the category is and how it can actually help improve the life and the lifespan of their beloved pets. And I think if as an organization, if as a community, we can get together and build this ecosystem, I think all of us will be in a better place.
No, I think it's a great example, whether that or iodization through salt and multiple of these things where we understand that this food is not probably appropriate for the target audience. It could be kids, it could be adults, it could be geriatrics, it could be pets. Yeah, so I think it's a great point. Satyendra, moving on to you, and I think you've highlighted in a lot of forums about frameworks and the fact that the category should be put under regulation. If you can just cover and maybe from the audience perspective, make people understand what will it do if we do have the regulations. What does it help to do, both from a consumer's perspective, the customer's perspective, and a company's perspective? How will it help us?
Sure, thanks so much. I think all my co-panelists spoke about it, and yesterday also in a CEO roundtable we spoke about it, and in every forum I've been talking this. There are three pillars in this, how it will help the industry or how it is pulling down the industry if you look at that. The first is the pets itself. If the products are not safe, they are not delivering the right promise, it's having a very negative impact on the health of cats and dogs. Why we are here in this industry? The reason for us to be in this industry is cats and dogs. And if we are not doing good to the cats and dogs, end of the day, this industry will never flourish. Because we are not addressing the most fundamental reason for us to be in this industry. Whether it is nutrition or quality and food safety, labeling, whatever it is. The second pillar is pet parent. Just imagine that you believe, you trust a packaging which is claiming a lot of stuff and it's not delivering that. And then it creates a confusion, anxiety, mistrust, misinformation, and people go back to the home food, which is not, to maintain a right balanced nutrition with home food, it's very, very, very difficult. As Salida said that, usually what we eat at home, it only delivers 10% of nutrition. So, the second problem, is with pet parents. And I think the industry needs to understand the biggest beneficiary would be the companies. And the reason is because it will open up the opportunities not only in India, because if we want to make India a manufacturing hub and export hub, we have to have a standards which are equivalent to the international standards. If we want to export our products, definitely we need to have a standards which are equivalent. Our quality needs to be matched to the global standards. So I think in the absence of this, we are missing out all these aspects. And if we have the regulation, this would be the best thing for this industry. It will help to accelerate this industry to its true potential.
Yeah, thanks, Satyendra. I can't agree more. And I think it's a perfect segue for Ms. Banerjee. Because Satyendra spoke about the fact that, if you see a label, and consumers tend to believe it, right? And they should have, they should trust the companies and should believe the labels, and we should be responsible in putting the right things on the label. But there are a flood of new products that are there across industries, exists in pet food as well. So how can we prevent this health washing, if I may, and especially in functional pet foods where the need for the pet is even, I'm not saying that the other pet food is not important, but for functional foods, the need for the pet is even more critical. So how do we prevent this health washing, and if there's any, any value addition or any work that you've done in the past which can throw light?
No, and having worked in the food industry for more than 30 years now, right? And I think if I may take a few minutes to just draw a parallel. The food industry went through this journey from unbranded to branded to, and we're today at premium and all that. But I think that's where an FSSAI played an extremely important role and an enabling role to create common regulatory standards, food safety frameworks, nutritional standards, especially claims regulations. I think was something which really unlocked and opened it out, and it democratized, like you said, it made it uniform for everybody. So people knew what they needed to put on the label, etc. And I think pet food will need to go through that same thing, but at the same time, I would say, since that learning is already there, I don't think it needs to go through a whole new journey, right? There are global standards, there are a lot of that. We need to put in place those kind of frameworks. From a nutrition, from a claims, especially when it comes to functional claims, etc., like you see in the regular food safety regulations, there have been certain frameworks put down, right? So when you talk about an ingredient claim versus a product claim, you are very clearly saying you need to have clinical efficacy tested, validated, proven, things like that. So I think we'll have to go through that journey to put that down. But in the case of pet food industry, I would say we have an opportunity to do it pretty quickly. I don't think we need to wait like 5 years for that entire thing to come through, etc. But I would say that would be one thing that I would say would help prevent health washing, like you say. But you know, my concern is not just saying that it's a good to have. If you ask me, it's critical to have. And I may be sort of put down at one corner saying, you know, you're taking too much of a hard stance, but I am taking that stance because, to be honest with you, there could be much bigger risks that we're sitting on, which a lot of people would not realize, especially who are early players in the industry. I mean, stalwarts like you guys would know this back of your heads, right? But a lot of people who are early players in this industry will not know. And I think it's important we do that, important we create awareness and education as well. So in order to ensure that we don't land up in some kind of a massive sort of catastrophe, I would say it's important that we have those frameworks for both nutrition, claims and safety.
And especially, I guess, at a time when we are building consumer trust, we need to protect ourselves as an industry to not go wrong anywhere, and therefore.
And let me just add one more thing is, I think one of the roles that some of the other countries are playing is around accreditations and certifications. So I think if we can use that opportunity as well, it would be good for people to make out easily. Because in food side of the world, we've seen consumers say, I don't understand what's on the label. There's got like 100 ingredients, I can't make out. So can I have sort of certification, accreditation kind of thing, which makes simplifies it for consumers. Yeah.
Thanks. Abhishek, moving on to you, and again we will put back the startup hat. The D2C model is great for discovery. I think we've seen it across categories. But can it truly be cost effective for low value, high weight products like kibbles, which is the majority of the pet food category today? And what is the sustainable path to scale and profitability? And for maybe some of the startup founders in the audience, I think it would be a good question to sort of get your view on.
Sure. So, see, the D2C model is great, right? It offers several advantages that traditional channels failed to or probably did not provide to that extent. It offers a much lower entry barrier, offers several advantages such as retargeting and so on and so forth. I mean, for all of these reasons, it has been touted a game changer in modern retail in the recent years, right? But for sustainable growth, I think omnichannel is the way to go for all brands, all businesses. I think it's non-negotiable. It's only a matter of corporate strategy as to when a brand or a business decides to go the omnichannel route. But that is the way to go. Coming back to your question about the low value, high weight products such as kibble, I don't think that's a D2C problem alone. I think everybody on the panel is going to agree here that low margin products are a challenge for any channel whatsoever, right? And it is then eventually up to the brand or the company to decide how they want to tackle it or how they want to deal with it, right? How we went about it, or how we tackled it was to use innovation within our processes, whether that was subscription modeling in the initial days to kind of get a larger or a higher LTV from customers, or diversifying and innovating with different formats and just new niche, higher value, products, right? So, for example, we invested into or added more value into the supply chain by creating functional foods, functional treats. Product mix becomes more value additive and obviously high value for everybody throughout the food chain. And then eventually D2C also offers a great technology platform to execute these models, whether that is through an innovative pricing model or through communicating value. It just helps us communicate value to the end consumers or customers more effectively, narrating our story, delivering and explaining and justifying that additional value that we've added. And I think that just helps the cause overall.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Abhishek. Ram, back to you. And this again, from a challenge perspective and exports perspective, of course, you spoke about the regulations, and that, of course, is I think is well understood, well registered. Is there anything else that we need to do in terms of building our expertise and network to really make India a manufacturing hub for global brands?
I think there are ways. I mean, the startups are already involved in that, but I'll just share my perspective in terms of what is happening and what is the way in which we can, leverage the export opportunity. So while the overall export in India is growing at about 20% to 25%, so there is an opportunity. So there are two ways to look at this opportunity. One is that we explore the countries where the cost of compliance is relatively low. So like the subcontinent market, African market, or Southeast Asia. So the framework is little more flexible, and that way the companies can also build supply chain and test their product and without spending too much on compliance. Like they will otherwise will have to spend so much on EU or US. So that is a one way companies can start the export market access. Other way is that if we do it that for long run, we run the risk of being, typecast as a country which is supplying to low cost products. So we also have to find a balance. So there could be a dual strategy. To start with, I think the focus could be on a countries where cost of compliance is low. So to test our model, supply chain models, and also the compliance cost is low. And then once that export market is established, then I think gradually companies can explore the option of spending more on building the compliance and having the facilities registered under FDA or EU compliance facilities. So I think that is a dual strategy, something that can be explored as a way to latch on the export opportunity.
So if I can just follow up on that question, because you were talking about export and so on, but there is a dual reality, right? There is this huge scope for growth within India, and then of course we also look at export. So if you were to look at both these opportunities and had to advise on where to put money, whether in domestic growth or on export, what would be your advice?
I think from an investor perspective, there always has to be a risk profile assessment. So in a domestic market, while it is an attractive market and it is still growing, so what is the growth at which it is growing? From an investor perspective, they would always like to put money in a company that has access to a bigger market. So we are already seeing there is an investment happening in the Indian domestic market where companies has access to India and some little markets in overseas as well. But the moment you have access to markets like US or EU through your compliance clearance, so definitely that becomes more attractive opportunity for any investor to put money into it.
Thanks so much. So we'll now move to the third segment, where we'll try and see how we can bring the views of the panel together. So I'm going to shoot some rapid fire questions at you guys. And this is both in terms of how your journey has been professionally as well as for, from an industry perspective. I won't start with you, Salil, this time. I will maybe start with you, Rinka. So what is the next big consumer trend you think will shape the pet food industry in India?
Salil said, we are at the early stages, to be honest with you, in that early stage of the conversion game. But I think especially at the top end of the pyramid, of course, you're going to see a lot more of premium offerings, more functional and more customized nutrition, I would say, whether it's based on breeds, age, all of that. So you see, of course, your muscle, bone, gut, digestive, all of that happening. I would say there's, interestingly, I think Satinder referred to it, but I would say there's also an opportunity of localization, right? Can I give recipes, formulations, whatever, which is actually as per, our, so the kind of food that we would do. Of course, they need to meet the nutritional standards. So they may be vegetarian or vegan or grain-free or whatever it is, but they need to, meet certain nutritional standards and so on. The other opportunity that I would say, and I think one of you mentioned about profitability and margins, right? So I think if we can look at treats as a space and pet treats in general, generally speaking are more profitable. They are also from a bulk density, and it's a technical term, but generally more denser. So more easier to transport, it's less expensive in that sense, right? So I think those would be opportunity spaces where I would say, and some of the ingredients that we are seeing trending, whether it's taurine, whether it is, beta carotene and a whole bunch of other, and of course many different alternate proteins that people are using today. In India, there could be an opportunity also for localization of certain kind of materials or, ingredients and seeds. The biggest challenge would be safety. So whether it's toxicology, whether it is, a lot of other things that we need to make sure that they are, from an allergen and all of that point of view safe. But I think, there is like treats, more profitable, and more functional customized nutrition is the space I would go, and maybe something around more ethnic kind of, home way that we make food. Yeah. So this is where I would see innovation would probably go.
So Ram, as an investor, which trend would you put your money on?
I think the category is evolving, so I think as the awareness is increasing about the category and the product, that will definitely drive the market. So product diversification and the increase of awareness amongst the pet owners, that would definitely drive the growth. Yeah.
Okay, great. The next one's for you, Satinder. So, your biggest learning from building this category over the last decade or so? 2 decades, okay. 2 decades, I'm sorry. Biggest learning?
I think not working in an ecosystem, not understanding, because the end of the day we are at the service of pets, cats and dogs, and companion animals. But you are not in isolation. You are not only making a product and just following a channel and end of story. You have to understand you have to carry the entire ecosystem along with you. End of the day, if you imagine, so 20 years back when I joined this category, the pets were outside the house, and now they are. Some time back I met a veterinarian and we were joking about that many years back we met a pet parent in her clinic, and she said that you remember that people were coming and saying that do I need to bring the pet inside when there is a rain or not? And today when I offer somebody that you want to adopt a pet, tell me that what is the size of your bedroom, because the pets will stay in your bed. So that's the shift which has happened over a period of time. So I think if we are not evolving with that mindset, if we are not carrying all the stakeholders along with us, because this is very engaging category, this is very evolving category, and the role of pets have changed, and hence we also need to understand that the ecosystem is getting bigger and bigger, the stakeholders are getting bigger and bigger, and this is the testimony of that. And if more framework, more structure is involved in that. In past, I think initially we have missed that opportunity, not bringing all the stakeholders together, not asking government. For example, GST, we have missed the rate cuts because the share of mind of government is not there. So I think the mistake which we can make is not having a right share of voice and not involving all stakeholders in this industry.
Perfect, thanks. That's great learning, Satinder, from your 2 decades. Salil, if we were in a discussion like this 10 years from now, I hope we are not all here, but I mean in different capacities, but if we were in this discussion 10 years from now, how do you think the pet landscape would have changed in these 10 years? Or on what aspects would it have changed?
I think I'm very glass half full on this, right? And the way I would see it is, in many ways across many industries, India has basically leapfrogged multiple, so we moved straight into kind of mobile phones, for example.
E-commerce.
E-commerce was quick commerce, for example, is a classic example. And so India in many ways, driven by rising middle class incomes, urbanization, and then obviously demographic dividends and so on and so forth, have been able to jump. I don't see why the pet food category is going to be immune to that, right? And therefore what I see is, once we get the basics in place, right? Once we get the basics of pet parent awareness, once we get the basics of the regulatory framework, quality food safety in place, I see this industry absolutely exploding. I see it exploding in a couple of different dimensions. One, in terms of the kind of innovation we're able to bring in order to get more and more pet parents to adopt us, right? So Rinku was talking about, for example, the way in which people feed the pets. But then usage of special ingredients, for example, Ashwagandha, for example, I'm just giving one, Turmeric, for example, is another, which can absolutely drive more and more pet parents to use more ingredients. It doesn't need to be smoked duck or liver, which is, frankly, I mean, I've never eaten smoked duck in my life. It's very unlikely that my pet I'm going to feed my pet that, versus something which I'm much more familiar with, right? So I think there's a distinctly Indian flavor to that innovation, which is going to come and absolutely explode the category. I think the second one is the kind of formats that we're going to begin to see are going to be absolutely unprecedented. I think there's an opportunity for us to significantly change. Typically, and you talked about kibble, Pallavi, which is kind of low cost in many ways. A lot of the markets which have very high levels of calorie conversion, to Riku's point, started through kibble, right? We have an opportunity, and we're seeing calorie conversion happen across a bunch of different formats. wet gravy format, for example, is driving and bringing a lot more consumers in. And I think that is an opportunity, and those are some of the categories which I think, or the formats rather, which I think are absolutely going to grow very, very quickly. So I think the industry is going to evolve in a uniquely Indian way. And then if I were to look back 10 years from now, I think all of us sitting here should feel very proud of the work that we're trying to do to build the category in the right way.
No, thanks, Sanil. I think the fact that there is a playbook globally that works for pet food, but all of it may not be applicable for India, I think is a very, very relevant point, and we should, and we have to adapt to what our Indian consumers are, not so much pets, but Indian consumers want, because they are the ones who sort of determine. The last one's for you, Abhishek. A word of advice for the startups entering into pet food apart from resilience.
I mean, resilience is you only enter into any industry if you are resilient enough. Right? So, I think staying true to their values is extremely important. Always remember why you entered an industry. Keep your vision aligned to that moral compass at all times. I think that is extremely important. The beauty of our industry is, or rather the beauty of entrepreneurship is that we get to choose what success looks like. So tomorrow, let's say if we decide that we want to be part of a bigger conglomerate and render our services to them and be able to extend our services to the market through them, then that's the goal that one should achieve. If they think that there is enough for brands to go out at it individually and independently, then that's the way to go. What we've done is we've kind of, as everybody has been talking about it, we've democratized the access to that industry, lowered the entry barrier by offering a robust supply side mechanism for brands to enter the market. Now they don't have to think about setting up a facility. They can always reach out to, say, a company like ours, and we can help them get started with the product. First of all, identify where the opportunity is, get a compelling product into the market, help them with the marketing messaging and so on and so forth. So kind of hand-holding them towards that journey, and then eventually their value system, their resilience, their determination, their team effort, their strategy decides where their success or the industry takes them. So yeah, I think that's where I am with the industry. I think as Salil mentioned, it's an explosive growth that we're sitting at the helm of an explosive growth. We just all need to decide how we want to basically book profits or book the orders from there.
Perfect. So thank you all so much. Before we open for Q&A, it was great having you all on the panel. I think a couple of points that came up and reiterated, I think, by all panelists was specifically, of course, the category is here to grow. There are challenges. There is a regulation that needs to be put in place to ensure that we give the right quality, safety to our pet parents, and of course to the pets eventually. We discussed the GST and how that can be a great opportunity for a category like ours. And of course the passion with which each of us are building the category. In 10 years from now, I agree, we will be very, very proud of what this category will be. And then thank you so much to the ministry to spotlight us and for this panel discussion. I will now open this up for any questions, any comments from the audience here. Maybe you can say your name and also who do you want should answer that question.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm Ankita Joshi. It's not a question, maybe an addition or a remark to what you just mentioned for 10 years. Maybe I will just add that maybe in the terms of scientific data for pets, as compared to humans, so we have so much for humans. India is behind in terms of global for the scientific data, and in 10 years maybe we'll be talking here for very different claims, and we will be having data for basic things what we just discussed, and we'll be maybe talking about some more and high level claims and data for collecting, and we'll see more investments from government and in collaboration with the veterinary institutes and other things for generating that Indian data which can support the regulatory framework as basic, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a great point because it goes hand in hand in also increasing the penetration of pet food, especially for the functional pet food. Any other comments or any other questions?
I'm Sanjeev Sharma. I think just to add what Salila said, very important fact that the nutritional element of home cooked food is only 10%. It's a revelation to a lot of people in India. I think industry need to make a big awareness campaign about this, not only to the public who are pet parents, also to the stakeholders which are impacting the industry. And again, the campaign we should talk about Sunday ke Sunday, something like that. The onus is on the big players, you or Nestlé for that matter, to come out with that kind of campaign.
Thank you. It's a great point. I hope we see that campaign soon, where basically we'll be talking about how, yeah, I agree. I mean, home food is not sufficient, and you tell even people, and it's not about affordability really, right? Even people who can afford it might not know that fact.
Home food we are eating, they can also eat.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
So my name is Manuel Stedler. I'm coming from Germany. Maybe a perspective from a country where you in future could sell your products. Regarding the development of your business, of course we don't have to talk with Nestlé and all these guys, because they are all around the world already. They know how it works. But as a smaller company, I would say the market here in India is big enough. So I'm not sure what is the size of mid-class here. It's maybe 500 million, 300 million, something like that. That's as big as Europe is, or as big as the US market is. So to be successful, in my point of view, you have to start here in India, and if you are successful in India, you can grow up in other countries. You have to imagine all these countries, these Western countries like the US or Europe, there is a high competition between all those companies, and there is no growth in this market. So the market growth is here, I think, in India, and you have to concentrate onto this market. It's my perspective, what I see.
Thank you. It's a great perspective. I think the fact that this category will continue to grow and everybody in the industry feels that, I think there is room for growth for everybody.
Hi, I'm Umesh. I'm a veterinarian background, practicing veterinarian. So I'm speaking as a vet, okay, here, not as a consumer. Okay. So my experience with the pet food in India has been great in the last 20 years. So I think you have covered most of the issues we are facing. What worries me as a vet, okay, is humanizing the pet food, particularly from the new players, and that's going to damage this category. That's where I'm really worried about it. So is there anything that we can do to stop this, particularly in the digital media, social media, key influencers? So banging is so much of misleading information. Every time I see that, it worries me. That's confusing the pet parents what to choose. So as a vet, it becomes difficult to recommend what is the right pet food. So I think something has to be worked on this one. So probably that's my just a suggestion to the panel there. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Umesh. Anybody wants to take that question?
No, absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Umesh, for bringing this very important element, because, as I was saying that, it's very engaging category, and, people tend to humanize pets, but pets, the nature of pets are very different. The nutrition requirement is very different. I think, the answer lies in two dimensions. The first is, there is a big need for improving calorie conversion and the quality of calorie conversion. So it's not only calorie conversion, and that's why, part of it, like the answer lies in regulation, definitely, but also, making the quality pet food more accessible, more affordable, and today, we face some of the situations where there's so many claims on the pack wherein the promise is not there, so I absolutely echo, I cannot agree more than what you are saying, but I think all of us who are playing a responsible role in this industry, should not only think about calorie conversion, but also, the quality calorie conversion and premium, I'll not say premium, but I'm saying quality, because whatever we put on our packs, there has to be efficacy of the product. Otherwise, as professional you are, and as I mentioned in my comments that think about a pet parent. They completely see this as a mistrust, or kind of they don't want to get into this. Then they are happy with what they are feeding. So I think it takes away whatever efforts are been put to build this category. I think it takes away from that. So you're absolutely right.
And also, I mean, if I can just add on here, the fact that there will be more Gen Zs and millennials becoming pet parents, and information access is becoming so much easier now, that there will be a point, if that they don't believe in the claims and what they read about, that will clash if the industry doesn't go towards a regulation. So I think it's also from many perspectives, the information is very democratized, and if people have lived abroad, or they have, I mean, everybody has access to everything nowadays, and they can read up. It's happening on the human side, it's bound to happen on the pet side.
I think
Thank you so much,
to
Dr.
just
Dev.
add one thing to this is also about making it easier for the consumer to understand. I think there's so much confusion for consumers. While we may have a lot of science and we will put a lot of things at the back of pack, etc. So can we, when we look through this whole regulatory frameworks, is also to see to have common kind of bodies, etc., who are actually certifying certain kind of products and who have looked through the science of it, etc. So having those kind of things as part of the framework would be a good thing to do.
Okay, if no other comments, thank you so much. You guys were a great audience, and yeah, okay, thanks so much.
I'll start by thanking Ms. Anand for being such an incredible moderator, and a very heartfelt thanks to all our panelists for their valuable insights. What we take away today is that the future of India's pet food industry will depend on how well we understand the consumer needs and develop products from these insights. Equally, the right regulatory framework, the greater government involvement, and stronger awareness of regulatory requirements are essential to build credibility in this sector. Harmonizing GST and ensuring clarity on policies will go a long way in supporting the growth. Trust will remain a critical factor, whether in nutrition, labeling, or safety, and achieving international level quality standards is vital to make export a viable option. With these enablers, India can not only service domestic market, but also establish global dominance in the pet food space. Now, I will welcome Ms. Dipali Joshi, the Head of Strategy Advisory at Royal Partner, to brief us about this involving industry through her paper.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for this opportunity to present this position paper. I must say I think we could hear more from if we had time, we could hear more from the insightful industry leaders we have. This has been very insightful session. So I'm Dipali Joshi. I'm heading the strategy advisory service line at Rodel & Partner. Just to introduce, Rodel & Partner is an international multidisciplinary firm helping international companies, Mittelstand, or you can say mid-sized companies, to establish and grow their presence in India. So at Rodel & Partner, we constantly seek to identify sectors that are not only growing but also transforming in ways that matter to consumers, government, and the overall ecosystem. The Indian pet food industry is one such sector, dynamic, evolving, and full of potential. It is a privilege to be here today at World Food India, a gathering that brings innovative brands, brightest minds of the industry, and other important stakeholders together. There could be no better moment and place to launch this position paper. So this paper unpacks where the sector stands today in terms of both pet population as well as the market size, how it is constantly evolving, and where do we see it in next 10 years. It also unpacks the key growth drivers that are reshaping the market, as we heard from our esteemed panelists, such as rising pet ownership, premiumization, digital adoption, and shifting distribution models. It also examines the trade landscape, revealing how imports, exports, and domestic capacity define the industry's current shape. This position paper explores the regulatory environment and how emerging, updated, and more integrated frameworks can influence the quality, trust, and pace of the growth. And finally, it offers a perspective on the sector's growth trajectory, highlighting the opportunities. It is intended as a resource for our industry leaders, government stakeholders, and investors to go back and further dwell upon and brainstorm over the key propellants that can take this industry to the next level. With this, with panelists' permission, I would like to present one copy each to the panelists. Yeah.
I would like to request our moderator and esteemed panelists to be here on the stage as for a brief moment. Please be Ms. Anand, I would request all our moderators and panelists to be here on the stage for a moment. So now I'll ask our moderator, Ms. Pallavi Anand, to facilitate our esteemed panelists.